My name is Jon Kabat Zinn. I'm a professor of medicine emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, Medical School, where in 1979 I founded something that is called Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction. I bend over backwards to not try to sell mindfulness as a commodity to anybody, and the more the word mindfulness is on people's lips, the more it's in the media, the more it is in some sense touted and hyped, the more I have to work overtime to kind of remind people that this is not some kind of dime store gimmick, the newest fad that will soon be gone and replaced by some other fad, but a deep, a profound way of being in wise relationship with you that really is thousands and thousands of years old and involves a certain degree of profound discipline and shifting of your way of being. And so it's a major challenge to actually undertake an authentic mindfulness practice and not just turn it into some kind of concept or some kind of good idea or something you talk about a lot but never really have time to, get down to actually practicing. And that takes an enormous amount of humility, modesty, and a deep determination to live this intensive meditative practice as if your life depended on it. The beauty of MBSR is that it's a vehicle by which people can learn that discipline and actually, over the course of the 8 weeks, come to see that when all is said and done, it really is a love affair with life, with yourself, with your possibilities. And in that way, nobody can take it away from you. Your experience is your own. Your experience is also the curriculum, so to speak. So it's not like you need to go have some special experience or some special meditative state, and then you'll know, aha, that's what it's all about. That's a complete misunderstanding of what mindfulness and meditation is. It's not about achieving some perfect, wonderful, relaxed, cognizant state of well-being or enlightenment. It's about embracing in awareness the actuality of your experience in this moment and realizing that that too is miraculous, even if it's painful. And that we can work with the discomfort, we can work with the pain, we can work with the emotional sense of rending, if you will, and that in working with them, we befriend various aspects of our life to such a degree that we become regain or realize or reconnect with our intrinsic wholeness. There are a number of misconceptions about mindfulness that really require addressing because the more popular it gets, as I've said, the more it's hyped and the more people talk about it as if it's a thing, a concept or an ideology or a catechism or a special maneuver that when you do it, you go into some special mindful state. And that is so far from the actuality of things. So one thing that people think about mindfulness is that it's, knowing that it's a form of meditation, is that you're supposed to, meditate, and then your mind's supposed to go blank. If I was really good at this, I wouldn't have any thoughts. Well, lots of luck. That's sort of tantamount to saying, well, the Lake Huron shouldn't wave when it's windy, because the atmospheric conditions in the mind are going to generate lots of thoughts and emotions. Sometimes we'll be totally calm and say, wow, this is what meditation is about. But what about when your mind is totally turbulent? That's what this moment of meditation is about. So it's not about achieving some special feeling or some special state, but it's about recognizing that whatever feeling you're having in this moment or whatever state you find yourself in, you can embrace it with a larger awareness, and that way find new degrees of freedom to navigate through the ups and downs of what's often a very stressful and challenging day or life or whatever. So it's not about dumbing it down or turning it into some kind of cliche, but it's about finding a way to live with integrity and deep sense of balance and facing the actuality of one's own life, health, and well-being. the most significant findings that I think are valuable to the ordinary person who's got some kind of life circumstances that involve stress, pain, and perhaps chronic illness, is that people are really the first studies that we ever published showing that people who go through 8 weeks of mindfulness-based stress reduction training actually have a whole litany of medical and psychological symptoms drop profoundly, like 30, 40, 50% over the course of the 8 weeks. And if you follow up with them over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, not only do they continue practicing in large numbers in remarkable ways, their symptoms tend to stay down for years afterwards. So something's been learned in 8 weeks that can be sustained and maintained and operationalized over 3, 4, 5 years. That's exactly what you're looking for when you're hoping to impact health and well-being in people. Give them a short intervention, but teaches them something, or they learn something that they can then carry throughout their life and implement in various degrees whenever they need to. But this is not like, oh, when you get stressed, then meditate. This is like meditate, let your whole life become the meditation practice. And that actually will, in some very mysterious and deep ways, change the biological, homeostatic, dynamical properties that we call health, that are transforming over the lifespan. So the health of a 2-year-old may not be the health of a 20-year-old or the health of an 80-year-old, but they all have something to do with the sort of dynamical way of being in balance of a certain kind that's not a static balance. And I don't mean just healthier in terms of like muscular strength or flexibility in the body. I mean mental flexibility. I mean clarity. I mean, you know, certain kind of equanimity, a certain kind of appreciation for relationships, so that it's not all about me. I mean, a kind of transformation of your life, so that rather than being, you know, extraordinarily self-centered and being stuck in some narrative that's a small sort of encapsulation of who you are and doesn't come close to containing the entirety of who you are, which is where the word spiritual might, you know, be pointing to something bigger. This is kind of the coin of the realm of MBSR. And people experience it. We don't have to lecture them about it. We don't have to even talk to them about it. They come to us and say, wow, you know, that all-day mindfulness retreat that we had in the 6th week of the program on the weekend, that was the most spiritual experience I've ever had in my life since I was like 3 or 4 or 5. And I don't ever say anything. I just smile, and, you know, most I'll say is, isn't that interesting? Because, you know, I don't want to make it into some kind of catechism or some kind of thing, or that was the reason we started you out doing these kinds of things, so that you would get to that experience. Because a lot of people have different experiences, and they're all beautiful. They're all valuable. To tell you the truth, that's why I write the books that I write. They're meant to be doors into cultivating both the motivation to practice mindfulness and the enough of a coordinate system for understanding how to go about it from moment to moment. And there are guided meditation CDs and even iPhone apps now with you know, reminders to practice throughout the day, and then formal meditation practices. So that, and then it's not just my work, but the work of thousands of people. There's so much stuff out there on the internet now that you could avail yourselves of to cultivate a mindfulness practice in your own life. You don't really need to be in a class, but I can tell you that everybody who learns it that way and then finally winds up in a class says it's so much richer when there are other people around the room. Because part of the learning is hearing how other people are dealing with everything that they may be dealing with in life, and that you would never even imagine it possible for people to deal with effectively. And where, you know, that's one of the beauties of sitting around in an MBSR classroom, is you hear in the first class, we go around and just ask what brings you to this program, and people will say the most astonishing things, and you realize, oh my God, I mean, I could never deal with that. So it allows you to, in some sense, and everybody's saying, I'll stick with my problem because I certainly wouldn't want to have that problem. And so everybody, in a sense, is really energized by the presence of very courageous people who are turning towards what they most hope to run away from or have just go away or be cut out of them. And of course, that's impossible. So to actually orient towards befriending the actuality of your lived experience. It's a conceit and probably delusional to think that, oh, since mindfulness is just about being in wise relationship with the present moment, well, I can just do that in any moment throughout my day and so forth. It sounds good, but it, as I've been trying to emphasize, it's the hardest work for us human beings to even string 2 moments of mindful presence together. So it does help to actually take some time out and formally exercise the muscle, work the muscle. And that's what the formal meditative practices would be, whether it's done lying down, a body scan, or just a quick lying down meditation, or sitting meditation, or walking meditation, or standing meditation. These are what we call formal mindfulness practices. And for the vast majority of human beings, those are absolutely essential. But that's not the real practice. That's the laying the foundation and completely supporting the real practice, which is living your life moment by moment and being here for it, being in your body, being aware of the thoughts in your mind and aware that those thoughts are just thoughts. They're not the reality of things. That is truly liberative. But it's a very, very rare person who can just live a mindful life without anchoring it and tuning, if you will, on a regular basis, the instrument of practice. So just the way even the greatest orchestras wouldn't play Mozart in front of other people without first tuning the instrument, there's a certain way in which if you tune your instrument in the morning before you go out into the stressful world, that is really powerful. So then there's no separation between formal practice and informal practice. It's just life, but we do need both, I would say, for almost all of us. One way that people could start is because it's very hard to do this, but there are 2 wonderful moments in the day that you can really practice this when you ordinarily might say, well, I don't have any time for a formal mindfulness practice. I'm just way too busy. How about the moment when you wake up in bed? And rather than jumping out of bed, you just lie here and ask yourself, have I woken up fully yet? And be aware of all the thoughts moving through your mind and how it is in the body, lying there on your back maybe. And just getting in touch with your breath and the sense of your whole body lying here. So everybody's got time for that. Maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 breaths, but at least you've tuned. And if you want to do it longer, wake up a little earlier, do it for half an hour. You don't even have to get out of bed. And that way, no more excuses like, I don't have any time to meditate. Of course you have time to meditate. And if this is as important as I'm saying, you don't have time not to meditate. Because the potential value in terms of health and well-being is extraordinary. And all of the scientific evidence is suggesting that we don't know exactly what the dose is, and a lot of people want to know, well, how little can I get away with and still get the big effects in my brain or in the genome or whatever? And that's, I think, a sort of a misguided question. The real question is, what optimizes my sense of agency, my sense of embodied presence, my sense of well-being in my own skin? And experiment with that. And then there's no fixed answer, and it'll be different on different days perhaps, and different for different people. But that's part of the love affair. That's part of the adventure. And it really is a love affair with life that we're talking about. And not just one more thing you have to squeeze into your already 2-programmed day. Well, nobody wants to fall into a condition where you wake up in the morning and your body's hurting, or you can't even sleep at night because your body's hurting. And some chronic pain conditions really are like that. And people who suffer from chronic low back pain or chronic headaches or facial pain or whatever it is, there's so many different conditions that have pain associated with them. And then you discover what the limits of medicine are, because you go to the hospital and hoping that they'll have some special pill or, in the worst case scenario, some kind of magical surgery, and that it will just make your pain go away. And then, you basically come to a rude awakening times where you discover there are real limits to medicine, and sometimes the drugs that you would take to alleviate the pain do other things to you that you just don't want to do on a long-term basis. So we see people, again, who have long-term chronic pain diagnoses and conditions, and we invite them to actually turn towards their pain, tune in to the sensations, and to stop using the word pain altogether, and or be aware of how much you're using the word pain, and instead substitute like discomfort, and then zero in, just drill down into what you mean when you're talking about pain, and say, well, like, what is it in the body? What kind of sensations are they? Are they rending? Are they pulling? Are they crushing? Are they, and there are all sorts of descriptors that actually help us to get a sense of what's called the nociceptive dimension of pain, how it is in the body, the somatic element of it. Then there's all the thoughts about the pain, like this is killing me, it's going to ruin the rest of my life. That's not pain. Those are thoughts, but they're contributing to the suffering. So we can make a differentiation between the bare sensations and the total suffering package that, to a large extent, we're generating ourselves through our thoughts and our, reactive emotions around it. Once you cultivate mindfulness, you learn to uncouple the somatic sensations from all the thoughts and emotions, and that actually, you still have the sensations, they can still be unpleasant, but the knowing of unpleasant sensations is actually liberated from the suffering. And it's just the way things are. And the more you befriend the way things are in your body, the more people find that, you know what, I'm learning how to live with this. Do I want it? No. But is it eroding the quality of my life? Not the way it was before. So I've actually rotated in consciousness in a certain way, and I now can be in wiser relationship to the pain, so I'm not struggling with it 24/7, and it's not dominating my life. So you can practice this by just like getting your toe in the water. It's just like take a kind of open look at the discomfort and just feel it, open to it. Just maybe for 15 seconds, or one in-breath. Or if one in-breath is too long, try half an in-breath. And then go back to like whatever you're doing to distract yourself or think about or whatever. But then more and more, it's like dip your toe in a little longer. Go a little deeper with the foot. And gradually begin to reclaim your body, even the parts of your body that hurt and that you don't want to deal with. And I'm not saying that this is a substitute for medical treatment. This is a profound complement to whatever medical treatments there are. But as I said, in many instances, there are very real limits to the medical treatments for chronic pain conditions at this particular time. Mindfulness has the potential to be of value in families to both parents and the children. And it's probably best if, rather than the parents thinking, oh, I should teach my children to be mindful, I think that's a really good way to turn your children off to mindfulness forever. But maybe you should just be more mindful yourself and leave your children alone, and they will benefit enormously from that. So the potential to bring mindfulness into parenting is really a phenomenal way to cultivate mindfulness. And it's almost as if you have live-in, mindfulness teachers while your children are living in the house, who are going to be pushing all of your buttons and give you opportunity after opportunity to self-regulate in ways that promote greater mindfulness and open-hearted presence and a kind of deep listening when it comes to your children, and a feeling of what they most need and what kind of obstacles they're facing, what kinds of stresses they're facing, because the stresses of childhood nowadays and the levels of self-distraction with digital devices is just colossal. And so very often the parents don't even know what world the children are being born into, because the children, adopt these kinds of new understandings of the world much faster than the parents. Richie Davidson, my colleague at the University of Wisconsin, likes to say that it's a little bit like language acquisition. If you want children to develop pro-social behaviors, and nowadays we see that like empathy and all sorts of emotional intelligence indicators are like at the lowest they've been in 20 or 30 years. If you want children to actually have these capacities and develop them, then they have to practice them. They have to develop a fluency in them. Just the way, we all have the innate capacity for language acquisition, but, if people are, all those instances of feral children who are not sort of raised within a family where language is spoken, they don't acquire language, even though they have the deep capacity for it. They never can acquire language if it's not done within a certain framework of ages. And the same is true for kindness, compassion, open-hearted presence, mindfulness, that it's really life-transforming if you can get these skills and transformative capacities under your belt when you're young. It can stand you in very good stead in the future when you're older and moving into the workforce and into what's really rapidly becoming the most complex lifestyles on the planet that we've ever seen. Very different from growing up on a farm in the 18th century or the 19th century, or in a city even in the 20th century. The 21st century, and especially in future decades, it's just moving so fast we have no way of predicting what we're going to need to know. But one thing we will always need to know is what it means to be truly human, and to embody that in our own way, in our own lives.